Thank you, Judge President. I have three very short clarifications that I want to seek from the team representing the first petitioner. The first one, perhaps I can direct it directly to Senior Counsel James Orengo. What is the relevance of rejected votes when computing the results or the outcome of a vote? The relevance of rejected votes. The second one, I would have addressed it to Ms. Soweto, but the team can deal with it, and you are not answering us today. The postponement of elections in certain areas, and you say this resulted in voter suppression. That people wake up one morning to go and vote for a particular category of candidates, that I go to the voting or polling station to vote for an MCA, or is it called MC? That people go to vote for a senator but not the other positions. Do we have any scientific nexus on this, or is it just an assumption that this happens? The last question for me is on the reliefs that most of the petitioners have sought. We were addressed by Senior Counsel Feroz Noroji and also Senior Counsel Professor Jenda on the reliefs or the relief in Section 80, subsection 4. And I'm wondering, what are some of the elements that must be satisfied before the court can act or can grant the relief under Section 80, subsection 4? That would be all from me, my lady.
Thank you. Justice Lenaola.
Thank you very much, Chief Justice. Thank you, Counsel. You've been most helpful to us, particularly to myself. I have three questions, four, I think, very short ones. The first is to Senior Counsel Philip Murger. You addressed us on the PDF format of the forms, but in the pleadings, there is a JPEG question. Would you like to?
I'd like to immediately correct that. It should be JPEG, not PDF.
Oh, okay. So it was JPEG. It was JPEG.
JPEG to CSV.
Okay. Would you then like to connect? Because you addressed us, I think you didn't connect the JPEG to PDF, and then you said CDF.
I will, but I'd just like to clarify that that was a mistake.
Okay. Correct. But just clarify when you answer, so that we can get it right. And also in the context of the staging and tampering and so on, explain to us how that happens in real time. Give us, say, Kagera Primary School Form 34A. What exactly happened in your theory, because you say some of these things you don't have? How was Kagera Primary School interfered with the Form 34A? Number two, Mr. Arwa, and this could also go to the other counsel appearing for the commissioners, you've raised many issues going way back before the election. The Venezuelans, mistreatment by the chairman, we're not allowed to do this and that. But we saw your clients in public reading out results. And that's what I'm calling my acquiescence question. They did all these things until the 11th hour. What evidence do we have that it's not an afterthought, that they're not doing this in good faith? What evidence do we have, apart from the question of the instructions to counsel, the meeting they called? Why do we have anything showing that for the last 3-4 months they documented these grievances and that there was therefore a storm brewing? My own sense of things is that when you come only at the point of final declaration, how then do we trust that in fact there were issues before? Tied to that, what role did violence play at Bomas? Because we have the evidence of the chairman that I couldn't do this because I was attacked, Gulier was attacked, we couldn't announce 27 polling station results, constituency results. What role did violence play at Bomas? I think you need to explain that as the commission, which is what you've said. For Firoz Noroji, Regulation 87.3, you've asked us to declare it unconstitutional, declare it inoperative. Please address that issue in the context of retroactivity and retrospectivity. At the time these things were happening, it was the law. You're telling us to now declare it unconstitutional. What happens to events? And you know what I'm asking about this. Mr. Ndegwa, you made a very innovative, I must say, submission regarding the diaspora vote, the number of constituencies. In answering my question, please go back to Article 89.1. 89.1 says there shall be 290 constituencies for the purposes of the election of the members of the National Assembly. We are addressing a vote in a presidential election. Please connect 89.1 with the presidential election. Otherwise, the way you left it hanging, someone would ask the question, what has this got to do with this court and the petition before us? I thank you, CJ. I thank you, Council.
Yes, let me just take up from where Justice Lenaola has with Mr. Ndwiga. Mr. Ndwiga, if you look at Article 38.2, every citizen has a right to participate in elections. How then do you reconcile that with your argument on Article 89? Because constituencies don't vote, citizens do. So again, prisoners, persons in the diaspora, how are they to be provided for if we are to follow your line of argument? My next question was to Philip Murgo. I was drawing a chart when you explained to us that what you're telling us is that in the evidence that you have is that the Form 34 went into the Kim's kit at the polling station to the constituency. Then between the constituency and the public portal, the Form 38 numbers were changed. They were changed in that sequence, if I'm to understand you. Now, I don't understand much about ICT, but I presume that at the polling station, when the Kim's kit takes the image, these forms are written in handwriting. How can you explain then, so that I can understand, how a form can be changed in handwriting? This is not typing, it's in handwriting. All these forms are being uploaded and changed, different people's handwritings. How does that happen? For Ms. Soweto, she's not here, but since we'll answer later, I was curious about the issue of voter repression and her arguments on that. If we look at the Constitution, Articles 136, 177, 180, each of these elections are separately provided for. So you have the presidential election, which has its qualifications, nomination process, even the dispute resolution process of a presidential election is separate, the governor is separate, the member of parliament is separate, the MCA is separate. And what happens when a voter goes to vote, they get 6 ballots. So it's 6 ballots into 6 ballot boxes. What we have then is 6 different elections, but on the same day. So if your argument is voter repression, then is the voter repression only to the presidential election? Or is that an argument that can be used by an MCA in Kakamega County to say that because the gubernatorial elections were cancelled on that day, my MCA votes have also been affected? Or, I mean, is it just the presidential election that the voter suppression argument is standing for? Or is it all? Because